Independence Hall. Who's been to Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? I'm going to show you a little 5-minute clip on Independence Hall, its history, to set up a little context for what who did that? That was a beautiful whistle. Nice. For what I'm about to share about the revisionism that happened in there, and then I've got a handout to hand to you. I was going to do this. I was interviewed on David Barton's radio show back in 2010 about this, and I'd love to have his input. I think we'll just, you know what we'll do, Stephen? Maybe we can just post that where the messages are at online. That way, anybody who wants to hear that. David Barton, who I am desperately trying right now to get here during the summer. Pray for me about that. Hang on. One of the best American historians here. He and Rick Green, a former senator of Texas, have a daily broadcast. It's called, I can't remember. Anyway, if you go to Wall Builders or you put on their David Barton radio show, and they interview everybody across the line. I mean, he is one of the most amazing men when it comes to understanding the Christian history of America. So I was experienced the revisionism I'll talk about right after this video in 2010 with a group of about 50 other people, and David was a part of that. And then we went on David's radio show to talk about it. So Stephen will post the radio program. It's 27 minutes. What's great about that is you get a lot of David's thoughts on it, too, as a historian about that. So, Stephen, thank you for that. By the way, rare form today. Let's watch this. This is a little history. If you've never been to Independence Hall, this is kind of what it's all about. Watch this, and then we'll talk about it.
If you're in Philadelphia, then you're on American Revolutionary Ground Zero. Independence Hall, the birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, is right in downtown Philly. Inside these hallowed walls are where America's founding fathers feverishly debated the tenets of the world's first constitutional democracy and plotted insurrection against the British Crown.
My name is William Watson. I'm a National Park Ranger at Independence National Park in Philadelphia. Now, when you come here to Independence Hall, you're going to see, most importantly, the birthplace of the United States. You're going to see the original building. You have the room where the Declaration of Independence is debated and signed, so it's the birth of the United States. You also have the room 12 years after that where the Constitution of the United States is debated and signed.
On June 14, 1775, the Second Continental Congress, with representatives from all 13 original colonies, nominate George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and set on the road towards drafting the world's most famous, strongly worded letter.
That's where the Second Continental Congress took place, and that's where they argued and voted in secret with the shutters closed for that Declaration of Independence.
This is the assembly room where independence is debated and declared in 1775 and 76. It's where 12 years after that, the United States Constitution is debated between May and September of 1787.
Formerly known as the State House of Pennsylvania, Independence Hall most likely got its current name from the French General Lafayette, a man instrumental in helping the colonists defeat the British.
He visited the State House of Pennsylvania, and when he came out, he called it the Hall of Independence. So he may be the guy who named it.
Philly was like the place to be during the period between the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. All the greats were there. Jefferson, John Adams, Samuel Adams, Washington, Patrick Henry, and of course, the most famous local,
Benjamin Franklin is here for both occasions. Franklin is one of the most revered statesmen, inventors, scientists in the world at that time. He's here for the Declaration of Independence debates for the Constitutional Convention 12 years later.
Turns out Jefferson had some help writing the Declaration.
There was John Adams, there was Benjamin Franklin, there was Robert Livingston from New York, there was Roger Sherman from Connecticut, and then there was Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson is probably, of course, the main writer of this document. People know Jefferson as the main author today.
Did you know there are over 80 changes to Jefferson's version of the Declaration? He made some final tweaks that really made it spectacular.
Jefferson was so despondent because they made so many changes in his document that he did what a lot of us do when we're depressed. He went shopping. The best shopping mall went down the middle of Market Street. He bought a thermometer, he bought strings for his musical instruments, and he bought 14 pairs of ladies' gloves. Must have been a presidential sale.
He changed the original phrasing, pursuit of property to pursuit of happiness, which is a very wide opening statement. So he also said that governments are made by people. So if they're made by people, that means that they're ours. So we have the ability to change them if we see that they're not working for us.
It wasn't until July 8th, when all the bells in the city were ringing, that a crowd of 2,000 gathered behind the State House of Pennsylvania. And the sheriff came out to read the Declaration to the public, the first public reading of the Declaration. And they went wild. And they stormed through the city. Wherever they could find the image of King George III, they took it down and they burnt it. They had bonfires going all that night, fireworks going off, cannons shooting. It was a big event.
You've heard the phrase, sign your John Hancock on the dotted line. That's because John Hancock's signature is the largest one of the Declaration.
It's sort of a apocryphal story that he signed it to where that King George III could see it. We don't know if that's true or not. Possibly he signed it. He signed it first, so he signed his name largest. And it's important to remember that the document wasn't signed all at the same time.
Oh, I love American history. So you see, if you've never been there before, this was a very pivotal place, mainly because the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution were debated and then adopted there. There's so much that I could say. Did you know, by the way, just thoughts that came to my head as I'm watching this, that while Thomas Jefferson was largely responsible for the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, a year before in 1775, Ben Franklin actually drafted his own. That Thomas Jefferson, a year before, Thomas Jefferson said Congress is never going to accept it. Ben Franklin was like, let's get it on, man. Let's come up against King George. And so just to show you how much was in the work, people weren't ready to accept it. I never forget reading up in New York City when the Capitol was up there after 1776, George Washington publicly read a copy of the Declaration of Independence, and it started a riot up there. And so they were kicking King George's statues and frames down everywhere. So, anyway, this was the context in which in 2010 we were taking a tour, much like the 56 of us who are going back from Boston to D.C. will be doing in June. Isn't it something that we have 56 people along the tour and there were 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence? Just very ironic. So that's kind of fun thinking about that. We had about 50 people with us at the time. Actually, in 2010, I never thought I'd come back to lead this tour. And so I jumped on board with David Barton and actually 50 other Christian leaders across the nation, and we had a great time. So I'm going to briefly share. I said this last time, but let me just capture people that aren't here. So you walk into Independence Hall, and they sit you in this galley area where there's like two facing bleachers to one another like this. And up on the right on the wall is a picture of Tumble's picture of the 56 signers, this that you're seeing on the screen. And so our guide just launched into a discussion that can't, believe we're all here. This is awesome. And he went into this education about these signers, which was just unparalleled. And I thought, this is just awesome. But how he did it was this. He says, tell me some of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And John Hancock came up, and Witherspoon, and several others. And I'm saying, and all of a sudden, though, when somebody'd be off and they'd mention someone, then he'd go, no, they were a signer of the Constitution, or no, they were the governor of Delaware at the time. So he'd not only tell you when you were wrong, but he'd tell you what the person was doing. So, and I mean, it was just first-rate stuff. So I'm sitting next to Pastor Jim Garlow of Skyline Wesleyan Church down in San Diego, and I'm dying to ask, and this is what I'm going back to check. I'm going to pose the very same question to see if they've educated their people. I hope so, because I don't get nervous about it. I get infuriated. It was like what I told you first service about Good Morning America and their redaction of Barbara Bush's statement. If you didn't hear it, you'll get it second service. We're going to have to get a muffle for him today. So I'm there with them, and I raise my hand. I'm going, since this education has been so phenomenal, I'm going to ask them now about their Christian history. But I don't use the word Christian, I just use the word religious. And I say, could you tell me a little bit something about the religious history of these men? And I give you now, I'm going to address two quotes on there. This larger document that I'm holding on here is I can send out on PDF, so just give me your email if you want it. It's too much to print, but I printed you a couple of the core pages. But I drafted this afterwards. Let me pause a second to go. If you go to nationaltreasures.org, that was my website while I was chaplain during those 7 years, because we spent a lot of time working with the historic revisionism and the omissions across the country. I'm bowing because I just got breakfast brought to me. So a lot of it, the stuff that we did was posted there. But you can read about that at nationaltreasures.org. It's pages 5 through 30 in Black Belt Patriotism in the book up there. But here was his response. So I'm sitting there. First of all, the first thing he says, he comes out and he says this line, and I quote it. I've got 50 witnesses to support all this. This is the document I produced for the National Park Service, the Department of Interior, to get them to get on it. So this guide goes through everything I just told you, and then he says, we're going to talk about history, and absolutely no discussion of religion or politics. And I kind of went like, and I looked around at people, and I'm like, that was interesting. Yeah, how do you do that? That's a great question. How do you do that? So when I posed the question, can you tell me a little bit about their religious history? I've never seen in decades a person's demeanor change more, from a scholarly attitude to an antagonistic one. And here's what he said, quote, there is no record that George Washington ever attended church. I almost threw up at that point, because one of his 3 churches was like 5 blocks away. That was first comment, but I'm like, and then it says this, while the NPS guide physically then hunched over, he mimicked and mocked one carrying and swinging an oversized Bible. That's what he did. And he said this as he did. He goes, even if I had said the founders were Christians, how could we really know? Just because people carry around a big old Bible in their hand, they can still be atheists. Verbatim. Now, remember where we're at, where we're sitting in. Yeah. Then keeps going. He made 5 statements. 3, he said this. Then he turned back, he said, quote, most of these men owned slaves. How could good Christians do that? Then he said 4, we know that Benjamin Franklin was a deist. 5, get this, we don't really know for sure about their religion. It's open for interpretation. You'll have to do your own study on that. Is that staggering? Yeah. A deist. Thank you. Let me go there. Then I'll comment on 2 of these areas. I comment on all of these, and I can give you the whole PDF, but I have 10 minutes, so I want to comment on 2 guys in particular. If you went through a secular education, college, university, whatever it is, most of the time you've heard about our founding fathers. First of all, if they were Christian, they were super hyper high church traditional. It's not like there were evangelicals around there with an active faith. And most of the time what you're going to hear about the core of them is particularly about Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Benjamin Franklin, is that they were deists. Now what a deist is, think of the divine watchmaker. Well, God starts creation up, and because there was a lot of the effect of the Enlightenment, a lot of the big thinkers there, the deists, they say that God created the world. He did in fact do that, but then he just let it go. He doesn't really intervene. He just sits back. That's what a deist believe. Now, truth is, a few of these were in fact deists, and I'll quote from that from a historian and scholar in a moment, meaning that they held some of these beliefs. Franklin was this. The problem is what it's left with is like he's not even Christian in anything. When I describe to you what type of deist Benjamin Franklin was, it's going to blow you away. So let me cut right to these two gentlemen. The other one who's often lambasted as a total liberal is George Washington. I mean, and this is what you'll hear. He never even took communion. Okay? And he walked out of church before communion was served. And this is the stuff that you'll get. So I thought when I was putting together a rebuttal to this guy, first of all, can you imagine me hearing these comments? Garlow even chimed up. I'm like, oh, yeah, here it goes, you know. And we started a little debate with the guy. You know, right off the bat, I'm like, how long you want to go, man? I go, because the comments he made were so astounding. There is no record that George Washington ever attended church. Think about who's saying it. It's not you or me or just somebody from the audience get up. This guy is he's acting scholarly in this place. I mean, he's a guide for the National Park Service. So, look at your handout. Here's what I did with George Washington. So I just want to cut to the chase with good old George. There's a lot I could say about George. Let me tell you this. On your way there. No. Right down the way. Oh, wow. No, I'm going to go right to this. So, what I did, anybody been to Mount Vernon? Mount Vernon is George Washington's estate below Washington, D.C. And, they're right here, guys. Here's. That's okay. So, it's his estate. And there's a museum on his estate. And if you go in the museum, there is a display of like a little church pew, which he attended 3 churches. One up in New York, which right after he was ordained as president, after he took the oath of office, they went down to Christ Chapel, which we will visit. That's the one right across from 9/11. They were in a 2-hour church service, the founders, just to note, right after he became president. Down by Mount Vernon, he was in a different church. In Independence Hall, they were down at Christ Church, had his own pew. I'm sure Stephen could pull up the picture of it, but they had their own pew. So him saying this, and I'm like, we're in your town, man. This is Philadelphia. I'm like, holy cow. I didn't even know what to say to him. I honestly didn't. I was just like, I was so flabbergasted. I thought he would say some liberal things. It went so far off the chart. I mean, I just lose it. I don't lose it, but I lose it inside. So at George Washington's estate, Mount Vernon, in the museum, there is this display and there is this reading that runs on the video screen. Now, who else would know about George Washington's Christian life? Thank you, Stephen. Besides George Washington's estate, right? If you're going in his museum next to his house, I'm sure they're going to tell you the truth. So I'm not quoting some wacky scholar. I'm not, citing something. So what I did in 2010, I go, I'm going down to Mount Vernon. I went down to Mount Vernon. I stood with my computer at the little display, and I copied all the notes down. They're not recorded anywhere else. What you have in that handout, if you didn't get one, they're right here. I saw somebody just walk in. So I want to read this through you. This is what's on the display screen. This is the guy. Good to see you guys, by the way. This is the guy. He said, we don't even have record that he went to church. Okay? Let's read this. George Washington was raised in the what? Anglican Church, the official church of Virginia and the other southern colonies. As in the other Virginia families of this period, he appears to have received a spiritual education from his mother using the family Bible and the other religious works at the time. He was a member and a vestryman of Pohick Church, that was there, and Christ Church in Virginia. When he married Martha Dandridge Curtis in 1759, it was in a, what? Christian ceremony at Mount Vernon, his estate, their family home. The couple was known to say grace at mealtimes, and they provided a religious education to Martha's children and grandchildren. Actually, got into the Bible. As president, Washington acknowledged the presence of a divine hand in the fate of the nation by promoting the celebration of a day of thanksgiving. He said, quote, I do recommend and assign Thursday, the 26th day of November, next to be devoted by the people of these states to the service of that great and glorious being who is the beneficent author of all good that was and that is or that will be. I do believe he's the first one to induct those Day of Thanksgiving. During the Revolutionary War, George Washington encouraged the religious convictions of his troops, asked the Continental Congress to support payment for a clergyman of many faiths or denominations to tend to the spiritual needs of the men. Quote, while we are contending for our own liberty, we should be very cautious of violating the rights of conscience in others, ever considering that God alone is the judge of the hearts of men, and to him only is this case are they answerable, unquote. Again, this is all from Mount Vernon on the display. Washington believed that political and religious freedom went hand in hand, and he encouraged the new republic to embrace religious tolerance. Quote, for you doubtless remember that I have often expressed my sentiment that every man conducting himself as a good citizen and being accountable to God alone for his religious opinions ought to be protected in worshiping the deity according to the dictates of his own conscience. Washington tried to set an example by worshiping with different sects. That doesn't mean different religions, that means different denominations. Presbyterians, Quakers, Roman Catholics, Methodists, Congregationalists, and even them Baptists. In a famous letter to the Truro Synagogue, Jewish synagogue, he made it clear that religious tolerance in a new nation was not for Christians alone. Quote, may the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while every one shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid, unquote. Last paragraph. It is clear in Washington's writings that he was a deeply spiritual man with a strong belief that a benevolent power was acting in his life in the founding of the United States. He said, quote, every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of providential agency. And who was that God? Was it a Hindu God? It was a Christian God. It was the God of the Bible. Now listen to this quote. We don't even have record that George Washington went to church. This isn't in the college down the road. This isn't in the University of California, state. This is in Independence Hall, where they adopted the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Let me ask you, what would you do? So I put this together and I sent it to the superintendent there, as I did with other revisionism. You were never intended to hear this because this was just my job in 2010. I was supposed to still be there. Got on David's radio program. We started blasting it, getting other congressmen and senators involved with it. What you do is you just mobilize the biggest army you can and they come clobber. So the superintendent finally wrote me back This is all in the, will be in the PDF. If you give me your email address, I'll send it to you. But I'll read her response real quick. This is from the United States Department of the Interior and National Park Service. This is actually from the superintendent of that area, Cynthia McLeod. She said, "Dear Pastor DeBoer, thank you for taking the time to comment on your visit to Independence National Historical Park. It is our wish that everyone has a positive experience when visiting, and we appreciate the value of any negative input we receive, which allows us to improve our skills. Independence National Historic Park contains some of the most important sites related to the founding of the United States, and part of our mission is to educate visitors about these sites and ensure that visitors draw inspiration from their time here. The number, scope, and complexity of the stories that could be told on our tour of Independence Hall are enormous. Each guided tour can be 30 minutes long, which does not afford the opportunity to cover all potential material adequately. Each ranger leads a tour in his or her own way, weaving stories and information around core topics such as the drafting of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Our staff is taught to present tours from multiple points of view and allow visitors to draw their own conclusions." Who needs the truth? It's just what you're beholding. Hold on, it gets better. I'm going to have to take next time to do this too. Sorry, I get all ratcheted up. Park staff receive training in subject matter content, including the historical debates over religious freedom and significance of religion in the 18th century life. Park rangers should be able to respond to most questions posed by visitors on a wide variety of topics, but may not always have the time to discuss an issue at length before needing to move on to the next program. We regret, I knew it somewhere that I had to get to this. We regret that your guide may not have handled himself as deftly as we would prefer, and that he was not able to get his point across in a clear and successful manner. Oh, he did. Yeah, I'm like, oh, no. He got his point across. I have spoken with the ranger involved who identified himself to me. I just love to see this moment when senators and governors and congressmen are just, they're in a meeting. Okay, we got a problem. You're all National Park Service people. Who was with a group, started swinging their hand like an ape about a Bible? I could just see the guy in the back. He identified himself to me. Where it ends. The upcoming training program for all park interpreters includes refresher training on this subject. Can I tell you what their training program includes about the Christian history of the founders? Zip. But it has plenty of everything else. How are you feeling? Have I raised your blood pressure? Feel sorry for the guy? I do too. Just think if I went back, I go, what's it been, 8 years? So when we go back, you just need to know. I walk up to him like, you look familiar. You look familiar. No, I'm going to ask the very same question. If it was him, I would just die. I would just die. I'm like, I'm sure he's tracked me down. But anyway, so I know I gotta go. So let me pick up from here next time. For those of you online, we're discussing the revisionism that I experienced in 2010 in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Talked about the guys that National Park Service guides' response about George Washington. So does anybody have any doubt that good old George was a Christian? Holy cow. Come on. So I need to get on Franklin next time. That's next time. Thanks for your time.